Welcome to the Superconscious Success Podcast, where Jen and her Superconscious Success family co-hosts bring you valuable content each and every week on topics relating to manifestation, spirituality, and most of all, using your superconscious to manifest success in all areas of your life. Now on to today's episode.
Hey there, Superconscious Success fam. Just before we get into the interview, this is just a brief message. This is actually a recording of the 2021 Superconscious Success Summit interviews. If you do want to check out the introductory for all of the guests, then you can go across to our Superconscious Success YouTube channel where you'll be able to find all the introductions. These particular podcast interviews will be the interview only. Okay, thank you. Now let's get on to the interview.
Hey there, Superconscious Success fam. Welcome back to another incredible interview where we are going to be talking to Danielle Pascale. Now, if you have not yet seen or heard her introductory video, then definitely head across to the Superconscious Success YouTube channel and check it out. So in this interview, we're actually going to be talking about what self-love is. We're going to be talking about possible blocks that are stopping us from unconditionally loving ourselves. What about the part that forgiveness plays when it comes to self-love? How limited beliefs can affect our level of self-love, and how lack of self-love can actually affect the success of our relationships. And on top of that, we're going to talk about why self-love is so important when it comes to manifestation, hints that may indicate that you're having a hard time loving yourself, and the link that the subconscious has with self-love, and so much more, including 3 ways you can practice self-love on a daily basis. So we have got a lot to cover in this interview, so we're going to get straight into it. But first, hey Danielle, how are you?
I am doing wonderfully. How are you?
I am doing incredible. I'm so happy to have you here today talking about self-love, because it is a really, really important topic, especially when people tend to put other people before themselves. You know, we're always the last person that we consider when it comes to everything we do in life. And it's like, if you want to have be able to manifest, you being a law of attraction practitioner, if you want to be able to manifest what you're wanting to manifest, then we need to keep that vibration high. To do that, we need to put ourselves first and learn to love ourselves. So we are going to start. Can you first define what self-love is for us, please?
Sure. So when I first started kind of researching this, to use that word, I was very shocked to see that the definition has kind of evolved over time. So in traditional early views of the word self-love was actually more on the negative side. So it was looked as to be sinful, to love yourself. It was said to be the same as selfishness. And then actually, our friend Freud, who, some of his theories aren't the most credible, but he believes self-love to be actually the same as narcissism. And I've done a lot of research on the narcissism aspects of things too. And, come to understand that, no, it's not the same at all. And actually, when I looked it up on Wikipedia, one of the early views was a moral flaw akin to vanity and selfishness. So I was blown away by this. Right, exactly. Yes, I was blown away by this because when I thought of self-love, those weren't the things that I thought of, right? So when I presented this in workshop format, I always kind of take a break to say to our audience, what do you think of when you think of self-love? And some people have come up with that early view. But as I looked further, the reevaluation of the term, of the definition by Eric Fromm, he says that selfishness and self-love, far from being identical, are actually opposites. So he dispels that. And then Carl Rogers saw a result of successful therapy as regaining of a quiet sense of pleasure in being oneself. So getting to that self-love. And then dictionary.com, their definition was self-love is the belief that you hold that you are a valuable and worthy person. So that's my favorite.
Yeah, I like that.
I think my favorite.
Because basically what they are saying is that in order for you to be a worthwhile person, then you've got to put other people first. You shouldn't be considering yourself. which is basically what selfishness is. But the fact of the matter is that self-love is about being able to love yourself in order to be able to love other people, and in order for other people to be able to love you. So it's crazy. Some of those theories are so outdated in terms of what we know now. But it's amazing how many people still believe that. Once you start to put yourself first, how many people come to you and say you're just being selfish? You spend all this time focused on me, and now all of a sudden it's all on you. It is something that I think people are starting to learn a lot more about, but at the same time still find it really hard to wrap their head around. So
definitely.
So what are some possible blocks that could be stopping us from unconditionally loving ourselves?
So there's so many here, but your own self-talk, how you talk to yourself, your own beliefs, which, beliefs are just a thought we have over and over again, but also beliefs and habits that have been passed down through generations.
Yeah.
So, what you were surrounded by in your family environment, but not only that, generations, something could have happened that you don't even know about that happened in the family line of the generation that you could just be, just got passed down to you. You might have this example of, oh, I feel really anxious, but I don't know why in this event. And so that carries forth, our own bad habits. We do something, it worked for a little bit, but then we don't realize, hey, maybe it's not working anymore and it's not serving me. So that's definitely a block. Lack of acceptance. And, and just your own, again, what goes along with the self-talk, how we're talking to ourselves, but the emotions that we're experiencing as well, and the lack of awareness of those things. So those are just a few, but the biggies are a lack of awareness that we might have because we just don't put that focus, or we're just not taught to think in those terms. Lots of clients that I work with have no idea what's going on in their minds, and they're shocked when they take the time to do the activity that I give them to build the awareness at what is actually going through their minds.
Yeah. And I suppose too, there's so much information going around about it that people are so worried about what other people are thinking of them. And that if they were to start to actually show that they're putting themselves first or this, then these people aren't going to respect them or accept them, or so I think there's a lot of things that can be contributing to us resisting that self-love. So I find that forgiveness, it plays a huge part in this, especially that of forgiving ourselves. So what part do you think forgiveness plays in this?
Oh, it plays a big part. I mean, like you said, learning to forgive ourselves, because we're human, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect. And so being able to find a way to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you've made, but also learn from them, right? They're lessons. We need those failures. We need those mistakes to say, hey, maybe I can do this differently next time. Maybe I'll tweak this. But forgiveness, not only for ourselves, but forgiveness for maybe even other people in our lives who maybe didn't fully accept us, or, there was just difficulty there or dysfunction, right? But ultimately it comes down to acceptance. And acceptance for who we are, loving all of our pieces, no matter what those pieces are, because it makes us whole. So, even if we're a little broken, what's that saying? Being broken just lets the light shine through, right? And so, being able to accept who we are, all together, all is one.
Yeah, absolutely. And limited beliefs, we did briefly touch on this before, and limited beliefs, as you said, they get passed down from generation to generation. And I think that if we can work on those belief systems, and we may have come from a family that was not very affectionate, or that didn't show a lot of love to each other. Or maybe they were critical. Maybe the parents were critical of the kids, and so it never really instilled that self-love in them. And it caused, as you mentioned before, self-talk is so important. And it's something that I instill in my own kids, that you've got to be careful how you talk about yourself, because one, the universe is always listening.
Always.
Always listening, and also it changes how you feel about yourself. It changes your vibration. It changes the energy that is around you. And so I think that if we have the ability to go in and change those limited beliefs and realize that, yes, we may have had that from childhood, but that's not the case now. That's someone else's perception that has been placed onto us. So what part does, say we are having difficulty loving ourselves, what part does it have to play in relationships, having a successful relationship? You talk a lot with women about dependence on others and being dependent on others, whether it's intimate relationships, whether it's family, etc., etc. So if we have trouble with self-love, then what sort of effect does that have on successful relationships in our lives?
I mean, it definitely cause suffering in that relationship, for you to be unhappy in your relationship. Certainly to choose unhealthy relationships or maybe toxic relationships.
Yeah.
Not be independent in that relationship. So to, not be able to make your own decision about something or even express your own needs, letting your partner know this is what I need. But again, it doesn't have to just be a partner. It can be, I even found in myself that it was happening at work. I was being the people pleaser at work, right? I was doing the same thing. One of the things, my biggest aha moment when I realized this, need to work on self-love for myself was, it wasn't just one area of my life like I thought. It was every area of my life. It was work, it was relationships, it was family, it was friendships. And so things begin to build up. And so especially in partnerships, we begin to maybe resent that person. And then also judgment too. You start, because what people don't realize is, because we are so often focused outside of ourselves, that the judgments that we make on the things outside of ourselves are very often, or just most of the time, the judgments that we have about ourselves, but we project it outside of ourselves. So that is one of the biggest things. And when we judge in any particular relationship, it really places a lot of negativity on that relationship.
It does. I think judgment is one thing that as we learn, as you learn about the law of attraction and you learn about how the universe works and spirituality, and judgment's one of the things that can really halt and damage a relationship. So it's something that you need to work on, to recognize that we are all one. And we are all, we're all people, we're all human, and we've been put here for a purpose. So to judge somebody else for something that they're doing in their life is often, as you just said, a reflection of how you're feeling within. So when you start to judge somebody else, start to look within and start realizing, okay, what is that person bringing out in me? What am I missing in my life that's causing me to feel like this? And then you can really start to dig deep and start to recognize things that you want to change about yourself. So now we live in a society that is predominantly lack-based. We tend to live in a society where there's never enough. We never have enough money, we never have enough love, we never have enough cars or houses or whatever it is. And so as a law of attraction practitioner, we recognize that everything is abundant, and we recognize that everything that we desire is within us, everything that we desire is available to us. So can you explain a bit of a difference between lack and abundance, and how that lack mindset that we have can actually stop us from manifesting that which we desire, whether it be relationships, whether it be money, whatever it is?
Sure. So like you said, I mean, we're a very problem-focused society. Very pessimistic. Nothing's ever working out for me. I can't tell you how many times in a day I hear that in some way, shape, or form. And throughout this, I even noticed myself, because I grew up in a home where one of my parents was very pessimistic while the other one was very optimistic. So I fight this battle between these lines of everything is always working out.
How did that work? Because it's kind of like the opposite energies that like, did your mum and dad kind of manage a middle ground between that, or did one of the parents just go, oh, for Pete's sake, and just block it out? Because it's very difficult being around somebody that's highly pessimistic and still try to stay in that optimistic space.
Oh yeah, definitely. So yeah, my dad was the more optimistic one, was the more everything will work out, don't sweat the small stuff. I could see, and my mom was more the pessimistic, grew up a little bit differently, and I could see as time went on, my dad did get a little cynical, but he still kept his, cool, calm demeanor. But I could see he struggled with it, and definitely at times was like, oh, just for goodness sakes, But yeah. My dad was a very calming person. People just opened up around him. So it was just innate with him. So he was able to kind of keep that up. But it was interesting. And even in myself, especially with this past year with, COVID happening, I started to realize, wow, I practice the law of attraction and I'm so pessimistic, expecting the worst right now with everything going on. And so it was a big eye opener for me because, just a lot when things happen in life, sometimes you just kind of hang out there. Right. And so again, it's that problem focused pessimism. It's, always focused on what I don't want. I don't want this. I heard one of my last clients that I met with tonight said, she kept saying, well, I don't want to sabotage. I don't want to sabotage. And when you're constantly focusing on what you do want, although it's great because we need the contrast to be able to see what we do want, we don't want to stay there, right? We definitely don't want to stay there. So we want to acknowledge, okay, this is what I don't want. This is the lack, and acknowledge it. But then the opposite of that is the abundance. The everything is working out for me. The solution focus, the optimism, this is what I do want. And the difference, even when you're saying those words in the way that you feel, right? When you're feeling abundant, you feel love, you feel happy, you feel content. When you're in a place of lack or contrast, you're more than likely feeling fear. You're feeling, sadness or anger, jealousy, judgment, those kinds of things. So it's not only just the difference in the way that we're thinking in our perception, but also the way in that we're feeling.
Yeah, and it's interesting because even with my husband sometimes, he's a scientist, he's got a very busy job and, and it's, constantly looking for grant funding and all that sort of thing. And he'll come home one day or we'll be at work because I work with him 2 days a week as well. And we'll be at work and he'll go, oh, I'm sick of having to solve problems. And I said, no, let's reword that. And we'll reword it from problem solving to solution finding. Because that's what we need to focus on. Okay, there is a solution to every problem that's out there. So rather than focus on all the problems that are happening, let's turn that around and go, okay, well, let's focus on the solution. What solution are we going to be able to come across? And just having that change in how we say something can change the vibration of exactly whereabouts you are. So I think that, as you said, self-talk and how you actually express something is so important when it comes to manifestation.
Definitely. Yeah. And along with that, how you feel, right? Getting connected to the feeling, because that's a big part of it too, because our feelings are energy and they vibrate as well. So that's a really big piece to it.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, we all need to start to, make little changes as to how we're speaking and to how we're feeling. And so if we're having a hard time loving ourselves, what would be some hints that we could, or some tips as to how we could start to do that?
So, I'll talk a little bit first about the signs, the signs that you might be in lack. We talked about this earlier. One of the biggest ones for me is judgment. When I find myself judging, I call her Mrs. McJudgerson. When she comes into play, then I know, wait a second, I got to stop here. What's going on? Let's reevaluate. Let's take some inventory. Jealousy is another one. That one comes up, but we all have a hard time admitting that we're jealous. But it comes up, right? That negative self-talk, how we're talking to ourselves, poor diets, maybe financial problems, being unhappy in a job or career, people pleasing. That's my other one, the people pleasing. The other one for me, when I'm in that place is, my best friend always makes fun of me. She's like, are you only going to listen when you end up injured and in the emergency room? So I've been learning to listen a lot sooner.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and blaming too, that's a big sign too. If you find yourself blaming others, that's a big sign that you're in that place of lack, and that those things are coming up. So a lot of it is the inventory, taking time to evaluate what's going on with me.
Right, and if you do find yourself in that lack, and you do see some of those signs, then what can we then do to be able to recognise our brilliance and recognise that self-love is not about being narcissistic. Self-love is about appreciating yourself for who you are and recognising your value in this world, because so many of us don't recognise our value. We go to work, we go to a 9-to-5 job or whatever, and we go to a job that we don't enjoy half the time, and it's like the same thing day after day, but we don't recognise how valuable we actually are, even within that job. So what can we do to help us practice that self-love on a daily basis?
Sure. I mean, the biggest thing that I teach is awareness building. So just becoming more aware of what you're thinking and how you're feeling. There's lots of things out there that can help you with that, but just, taking a moment throughout your day, a couple times a day, just to stop and say, what am I thinking? Don't judge it. Just what am I thinking? And then also too, to take times in the day, what am I feeling? Asking yourself those questions. When you find yourself focused on this is what I don't want. Like you said, look for the solution. What do I want?
Yeah.
What do I want? And in that moment, you usually pretty quickly you'll find an answer. Sometimes, you got to wait a little bit, but again, ask and you shall receive. You will get that answer. It will come. Yeah. Learn what is a yes or a no for you, right? So for us recovering people pleasers, learn what is a definite yes and what is a definite no, and learn to start saying no. One of the other things that I teach people is like one of the homework assignments I give sometimes is just say no to something small, the smallest thing you can say no to, because it's so empowering. Yeah. And you are taking care of yourself. And the other big one, which can be hard, is taking responsibility and accountability for your own actions, your own feelings, your own thoughts. Yeah, that is super huge.
Yeah, because sometimes we stay in that victim mentality where it's like, it's everybody else's fault. It's not my fault. I had nothing to do with it. And we tend not to want to take responsibility for where we are in our life. And that's the first thing we have to do if we are going to make a change. And so I think that, as you said, take responsibility for where you are. And then you can start to make changes to move forward. Now, when we talked about finding a solution and the idea will come to you, this is where the superconscious really plays a part. And this is where we can connect with the divine and we can connect with the universe, and we can have all of these solutions downloading from us. Now, are you able to just tell us a little bit? There is a difference between the superconscious and the ego. And can you just tell us a little bit about how both of them interact when it comes to self-love?
So, the ego is, it's, more of our conscious mind. We're more aware of it, or sometimes we're not, but, but, the ego at times can really work against us. And it will push us into fear and into scarcity and into that lack, right? Yeah. So I often will tell my, yoga students, leave the ego at the door. You don't have to push yourself to the point where you injure yourself. Challenge yourself, but if you don't push yourself past that point, right? And so, like I said, sometimes the ego can work against us. So, don't get me wrong, the ego has its benefits and helps us and does push us and helps us move forward, but it sometimes can work against us. Now, the super consciousness is really that level beyond. You know, it's a level of awareness that's beyond, you know, it's energy. It's understanding that everything is energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our feelings are energy. This chair that I'm sitting in is energy. Understanding that we are all one, like you said earlier. So it's moving in that step beyond. You know, when I think about the super conscious, I think about what I'm trying to attain when I meditate, you know, and that level beyond, right? The level beyond the consciousness, or even when I do a certain kind of yoga nidra, you're getting into those different levels. I think when you're in that level, it's so pure. And that really is that space where you can, if you can get yourself there, and you can really you can really feel that love and that abundance. And you really come from a true place of love and understanding, and, you know, a different perspective, you know, that wholeness.
Yeah, it is. And the superconscious is all about unconditional love. As you just said, the ego is based on fear, and the ego's only job is to survive. That's its job. It's to survive and to make sure that we rely on it to be able to function in life, because it's our conscious mind. Whereas the superconscious is our higher self that just is like it is unconditional love. That's what source is unconditional love. And so if we can show that love to ourselves, that builds that connection with our superconscious. And it also builds our connection with other people, because we're all one, as we just said. So if we show that love, then you'll start to attract all the people in your life that can show you the same love that you're looking for. So that is fantastic. We have covered a lot today, Danielle, and I hope that by the end of this interview, people will start to be able to really recognise their value in this world, and to recognise that they deserve to love themselves for who they are. And, you know, God doesn't make mistakes. Every single one of us was put here for a purpose. And so, you know, once we start to recognise that, and we start to practice that self-love, stop worrying that people are going to think you're narcissistic, because you are not. There is a very big difference between the two.
Very big.
And so just, I really hope by the end of the interview that we can start to embrace that love, and start to expand the consciousness, which is what will happen in the process. So thank you so much for being with me today, Danielle. Is there anything else you would like to let our listeners know about? All of your information is going to be in the playbook. They'll have everything there, including your bonus gift and all that sort of thing. But is there anything else you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, so just, you know, leave you with, have fun with all of this. You know, first and foremost, allow yourself to have fun. You know, get in touch with that gratitude, celebrate your successes, because that is so important. You know, I'm so thankful to be a part of this summit, and to be connected with you and all these wonderful people. All my information will be there, but, you know, if you want to get connected with me, find me on Facebook, and I have my group of women that we work with on there, private Facebook group, Becoming Emotionally Independent, the mind-body experiment. So
wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Danielle. I am so blessed to have you on the summit and to be part of the Superconscious Success family. And you look after yourself, and hopefully I will see you at the after party if you're available. So
yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Wonderful.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle.